Some of us are outwardly successful, but inwardly feel unhappy and living a life lacking in purpose and meaning. The Necktie and the Jaguar by Carl Greer can help you discover what's important to you and how to go for it. For more information or to purchase the book, visit carlgreer.com. That's CarlGreer.com.
My name is Victor Fuhrman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. Can magic, with a K, help you unlock, welcome, and nurture your truest self? Can witchcraft be a customizable experience that values sex, the human body, and the natural world, grounding us in natural and powerful sensory experiences? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Veronica Varlow, the Love Witch, shares her new grimoire of spells that combines the never-before-revealed secrets of her Bohemian ancestry with her unique brand of rock and roll magic, the School of Spectaculus. Veronica Varlow is the last of a line of Bohemian witches, a fourth-generation intuitive and international burlesque showgirl. She's a confidence and sensuality coach who's been featured on The Tonight Show, Playboy, CNN, and MTV in 150 countries worldwide. She performs love rituals, couples rituals, and healing rituals all over the underground art scene in New York City. She also writes a regular column called Life of a Love Witch for Enchanted Living magazine. Her website is lovewitch.com, and she joins me this week to share her new book, Bohemian Magick, Witchcraft and Secret Spells to Electrify Your Life. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Veronica Varlow. Good evening, Veronica.
Good evening. It is so good to be here.
And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your fantastic and wonderful path. Let's start with your bio. Your bio says that you're descended from 5 generations of Czech Romani witches. Please share with our listeners that heritage and how it shaped your early life and path.
Oh, that is an excellent question. Well, my grandmother, Helen, was born here in the United States, and her mother, my great-grandmother, Anna, came from what was originally known as Czechoslovakia. And that is known as the land of Bohemia. So what happened was everyone in their family, down the female line, would share their magic and build on it each generation. And when my grandmother was growing up here as a child in the United States, my great-grandmother continued to teach her these old traditions. And I was very lucky because my grandmother continued to teach those with me when I was a little girl and pass them down from our long line of Bohemian witches. And that is something that has shaped my life and has made me feel really powerful in who I am and connected to the world and connected to my ancestors. So that was how I was raised. And the reason I wanted to write this book so badly is because I do not have any children in this lifetime. And I wanted, because I'm the last in my line, I wanted to write this book to pass this tradition and all of the magic that I learned from my grandmother on to other people in this world.
You share in Bohemian Magick that even though your grandmother had taught you much of this, there was a point that you sort of turned it off. Why did that happen?
You know, it's interesting. I think that when we're children, we are naturally magic. It's before they tell us that, how we're supposed to be, or that intuition isn't real, or, all of those things that happen over the course of growing up. And I feel like we're all very magical when we're children. And as I started growing up, I moved to New York City and I was going to try and do my dream. And I was really excited about moving here. But very quickly, I realized that, I needed to keep a roof over my head. I had student loans to pay, I had bills to pay, and I got lost in a corporate world. And to the point where I started to not recognize myself and not have time for magic because I had bills to pay. And not only did I really give up my dream, but I was kind of really losing myself in a world that I didn't believe in and that didn't feel good to me either. So that is the point that you're talking about in the book, where I really, even though I was raised with all this magic, I kind of turned my back on it when, when I felt like my survival in New York City was needed to be priority number one. And I really got into a really bad space during that time.
What would you say to listeners who have young children, especially girls, who
Mhm.
are demonstrating perhaps psychic ability, who are demonstrating an understanding of the workings of energy and nature? How would you encourage them?
Oh, so many things, so many things. Well, one are the children, I really believe, like I said, have natural magic to them. And I feel like all of us have incredible instinct when we're children, because before we can speak, we have to kind of tap in with what's going on to keep ourselves safe. So when we start to speak and when we walk into a room and we feel that like our parents have been fighting, or we feel like something's wrong, and we say like, is everything okay? And our parents want to protect us. So they'll be like, oh, no, 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 everything's fine. Everything's fine. And then we start to doubt our intuition. And so if you have children and they're demonstrating some kind of magic, which I think that most children do, I think encouraging them with that and asking them questions, letting them be the leader, letting them talk like they're the adult and let them explain things to you that they're experiencing. Oftentimes, children will, I know that I did, will be able to see spirits or communicate with the other side with more ease, or they will have premonitions, or their instincts about other people or things happening are pretty much right on. And I know I'd love to share actually with you, if it's okay, if we have time, a little story about my grandmother and how she really helped me create strong self-confidence.
Please do.
Okay, so when I was about 6 years old, I was getting bullied, and there was a lot going on. And I came home one day and I was crying. I felt horrible. I couldn't believe that these other kids could be so mean. And she took me out to the dock where the water was, and it was springtime. And she let me talk it out, and she brushed my hair because that was her way of calming me down and relaxing me, because there's a hypnotizing aspect of somebody brushing your hair. And so I talked about it and talked it through. And at the end, she pulled my clump of hair from the brush and she put it down on the ground beside us and laid a little rock on top of it, just on the side to hold it down so it would blow away with the wind. And we sat there for a while and she asked me to watch this clump of hair. And after a little while, a brown bird swooped in and grabbed a piece of my hair and flew off, and then came back and grabbed a piece of my hair again and flew off. And it continued to happen. And my grandmother turned to me and she said, that bird is building a nest with your hair. And baby birds are going to grow up singing their first song nestled in your hair. How can you care what other people think about you when you're magic? And that, as a 6-year-old child, made me feel so powerful that when I tell you this story tonight, I feel myself getting emotional because I remember that was one of the first times I felt really seen and powerful and magic and above the bullies. You know, she gave me that gift.
I have a tear in my eye right now with you because I had a grandfather who did something very similar for me, and he recognized in me kindred spirit. And rather than speak to me as a child when I was 5 and 6 years old, he shared mysticism with me that he would share with an adult friend. And he made me empowered in the same way. So thank you for sharing that. That's a wonderful, wonderful story.
Thank you. Thank you.
In Bohemian Magic, you advocate we need to reclaim our truest, most authentic selves, which you call our wild. Have most of us lost our wild, and can we find it again?
I think it's just a matter of taking down everything that doesn't belong to you. Because, as people, interacting with a lot of things in this world, especially with computers and cell phones and everything happening, a lot of times things can be piled upon us that aren't necessarily the truest version of us. And I feel like when you strip away all those things, when it's just you and your bare feet are in the ground, and you have a moment to be outside and just breathing and looking up at the stars and looking up at the moon and just really feeling the wind all around you and feeling that power and that energy and communicating with this gorgeous and beautiful world. I feel like that is the essence of our wilds. That is bringing it all back to the basics, the strongest, the most powerful form of you from when you were little. And my grandma would say, during her life, she had one person that she would always turn to. And she would say that when she was 6 years old, she would have a little photo of herself when she was little. And I have the same thing on my refrigerator. And any single time that you have a question about anything, all you need to do is ask your little self, because your little self knew you better than anyone else. So she would always say, if I have a question about anything, if I have a decision to be made, she would think back and look to her 6-year-old self and say, I have this opportunity, or I have this decision to make. What would you want me to do? What would you be really excited for me to do? And my grandmother had a really beautiful and magical life because her 6-year-old self was her compass. And she taught me how to do that. And when I started, after turning my back on my magic for, a couple years, when I first got here to the city and I was really struggling, I turned back to that little version of me. And I knew that she wanted more for me and she wanted me to live this magical existence. So I did it for both of us, for me and my little self, so that she would be proud of the life that I was creating for us.
Beautiful. In Bohemian Magic, you referred to that as each of us having our unique magic. And as we've discussed, most have forgotten or abandoned it. Why do you think that happens other than the change from childhood to adulthood?
It's hard. There's a lot of pressures. And I think that, I mean, I know for myself, for having for having money problems or in the past and like, struggling to make ends meet, especially living in a city that is very expensive to live in just to get an apartment. I think that's one of the things. I think another thing is what society thinks or says that we're supposed to do. They're like, well, you got to go to school and you have to go to college and then you take on student loan debt and then you got to pay that off and you have to get a job so that you can pay that off. Plus you got to get, your place to live. And there's so many things that are kind of expected of us that it's easy to kind of abandon our magic. But also, when you think about time itself, I think that a lot of times, because we're running around so much, that there is a lot of kind of like tuning out happening, tuning out on screens, tuning out watching movies constantly on our computers, and tuning out and texting or scrolling through things. And that's the time where we kind of start to lose parts of our magic. And so it's just creating a space for your magical practice and how important that is.
I know that in 42 years of working in industrial sales engineering, I wouldn't dare mention most of my spiritual pursuits to anyone else for fear of either being ostracized or losing my jobs. Is that another issue for most people?
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. I mean, I was always kind of the weird temp. So so they kind of laughed at I was always kind of like out with some of the things I did. So, it was I never really had like, I was always floating from one job to the next. So it wasn't like I had a career. But I'm definitely sure that it's like that too for a lot of people. In fact, since I've been putting things out about Bohemian Magick, there's a lot of people that have reached out to me and have said that they're kind of toe dipping into this spiritual world and they're really interested about how to create rituals and to create sacred space in their life. And so that's makes me feel really good. That makes me feel good that so many people are really yearning for that.
I made some very good friends with wild temps over the years, believe me. I really
Including this one, because we're buddies now. So
absolutely. In Bohemian Magick, you say we have to give ourselves permission to reclaim this. Why so?
whew, oh boy. It's I gotta tell you, okay, so I do this thing called Witch Camp. And on the opening night of Witch Camp, I serve them food and then I have them clean their plates. And after they clean their plates, I have them take a marker and they have to write everything that is holding them back on this plate. I want them to talk about all the horrible things that they think about themselves, or that they're not cool enough, or that they're not smart enough, or they're not pretty enough, all that stuff. And I want them to write it on this plate. And then one by one, we take these plates outside under the stars to this altar space. And we take a hammer and we smash them to bits. And it feels so good. And right after we're done with that, we come inside and we have a gorgeous week ahead of us. And it's nighttime. They're about to go to sleep in another hour. So we just smashed our plates and got rid of all of that and put it in the garbage where it belongs. And then we do permission slips, because once you've cleared all those obstacles out, now you have room. So you ask yourself, what permission do I need so that I can really stand in my power? And I write things. There's actually a sample in Bohemian Magick of my own paper and my own permission slip I wrote for myself. And part of that is about writing, saying, I give myself permission to tap deeply into my DNA, into my ancestors, known and unknown, into all of my power, into all of the beings that I have ever been in the most magical and deep way, I give myself permission to own my magic and be proud of it. And when you give yourself permission out loud, it's powerful. There's something about that. And when we read our permission slips out loud, as if we're going on a class trip and we're having our parents sign off permission for us to go, but in this case, we're signing off our own permission to go. And I think that giving yourself permission to be the beautiful being you are, and knowing that that's okay and that it's more than okay, it's beautiful. It is embracing the wildest form of you, which is that, magical creature that you are. I think that's really, really important.
Writing on the plates and smashing them, you call in your book the initiation of search and destroy.
Yeah, I every single one of the spells I named after a rock and roll song, so that the table of contents, because I'm very moved by music, and I feel like it's a deep form of magic, and so rock stars are my saints in some kind of way. So they are inspirations to me for sure, and my supernatural heroes. So the table of contents reads as almost if you're going to a jukebox and you get to pick a song and see what spell it is. So that is the Iggy Pop Search and Destroy. So yeah.
And we're going to be touching upon that a little bit later in the show. One of the things that I know in my life happened when my spiritual path expanded, my first wife's contracted, and that led to the end of that marriage. How many people end their relationships because of the fact that they have to give themselves permission and move forward on their path?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm not really, to be honest, I'm not really sure how to answer that because, I do know my husband, David, I did a spell to meet him.
Mm.
And I had really wanted someone that was going to be my male counterpart, someone who believed in magic. I really needed someone who 100% was into this magic, into doing spells, able to understand and meet me there. And I did a spell. Actually, I did a spell on November 1st, Day of the Dead of 2018. And I set up all the pictures of my loved ones that passed on and that are on the other side. And I lit candles and I sat there and talked to them. And I asked them to send me any signs of things going on and how much I was grateful for them. And at the end of the conversation, I said, you know me better than anyone else. And it would really be so beautiful if you can send to me a partner, somebody that really gets this and is magical himself. And I just kind of, I was like, you know me better than anybody, all of my spirits on the other side. And if you could match make for me and bring me this magical person, that would be really beautiful. And 27 magical days later, I went on a first date with the man that became my husband. And it was the most magical date, first date. And, one of the first things he asked me, he said, well, I'd love to read your tarot cards. And I was like, oh my God, he reads tarot cards?
That's wonderful. 27 days, 2 and 7 is 9, the number of completion. My guest is Veronica Varlow. Her book is called Bohemian Magick, Witchcraft, and Secret Spells to Electrify Your Life. Veronica, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Well, you can get my book anywhere by searching Bohemian Magick, and that's with a K. So it's Magick. You can go to my website at lovewitch.com. And you can also check me out on Instagram under Veronica Varlow, which is Varlow. And in my bio, I have all sorts of delicious links, and you can find the books at my local bookseller, Word, where I'll autograph a copy for you.
Wonderful, and we'll be back with more of Veronica after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Veronica Varlow, her book, Bohemian Magick, Witchcraft and Secret Spells to Electrify Your Life. Veronica, how did you get the moniker The Love Witch?
Well, it's interesting because I was doing spells for a lot of my friends, and it was all based on love. And for so long, people were coming to me for love spells and love rituals. And how that all happened is that I was in a Brooklyn warehouse party, and they set up a tent for me, and I was working with a bunch of different couples would come in two at a time, and I mean two people at a time, a couple, and I would work a ritual with them. I would have them put their hands on each other's hearts, and I would do a special rose petal ritual that I talk about in Bohemian Magick. And it's something from my grandmother that really gives a deep connection to a couple. And it just started happening. People were like, oh, the Love Witch is here, because I guess they didn't remember Veronica Varlow. So that is how it came to be. And yeah, and it's funny because right after or right during that time, there was also a Love Witch movie that's out, and it's actually this pretty awesome campy 1970s kind of style movie that was a lot of fun to watch as well. So yeah, so that's how it happened, doing lots of love spells and parties.
It's funny. As you're saying that, I hear in my head, the Love Witch soon will be casting another spell. The Love Witch will make all of your relationships well. Da 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 da. Anyway.
Oh my goodness, that's going to be the new theme song. I love it. I hope there's not like a copyright issue, but
well, it might be. But let me just ask you something. I would venture to guess that love magic or love spells are probably the most asked for. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%. Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes.
and you offer an entire chapter on love magic in Bohemian Magick. You mentioned about the spell and the ritual you did to get David. Can you give us an example of another one that our listeners can resonate with?
Oh, sure. Well, one, I would like to point out that before I even dive into this, it's very important. Oftentimes, people will come to me and they will be asking for a love spell. And after talking to them for a little while, I discovered that one, they need to do a love spell on themselves first, because the most important thing for a love spell to work, to magnetize another person to you, is that you have to zhuzh up your own beautiful, gorgeous, juicy energy yourself first, because you want to magnetize somebody on the highest level. So you have to put a love spell on yourself first. And so I talk about that in the book, and different ways that you can do that, and ways that you can really have yourself shine and be feeling good in yourself. Because when you are fully claiming your power, there is nothing sexier than that. When somebody is really solid with who they are and knows what they want, it's a beautiful, like very, very sensual thing. And so I help them through that first. And then secondly, we will work on love spells later, once they're really feeling good about calling a person into them. So what you can do is, there's a couple different things that I talk about in the book, and it's calling someone to you. And then there's also spells that you can do with a partner. One of my favorite, if you are listening and you have a partner in your life and you want to strengthen that connection and take a moment of time to like really give that some good energy. One of the things that is passed down from my grandmother is Bohemian knot magic, which is KNOT, like tying a knot, which is tying a knot, just like getting married. And what you do is you sit on the floor across from each other and face each other. And you have a long ribbon that is the span of your lover's like wingspan. So it's about 5 to 6 feet long, and you hold it between the two of you, and you take turns by going back and forth and saying something that you're grateful for in the relationship, or something that you're excited about doing with them, or something that you deeply love about them, or a beautiful memory. And when you're saying this thing that you choose to say, you start to tie a knot, and with your breath, you blow that life into the middle of where the knot will be, and then you pull it really tight. So it's almost like it captures that story in the knot. And then you pass the ribbon to your partner, and they about like 8 inches away from your knot will go and tie a knot and a story to it, and then blow that story with their breath into it and strengthen the knot. And you go back and forth until there's 9 knots. The last one you do together, you pick one together. And there's an incantation that I talk about in Bohemian Magic that you can say together. And you take this beautiful ribbon with all of these knots of your stories, and you put it over your bed so that you are sleeping underneath these gorgeous stories of what is so important to your love. And, it kind of watches over you as a guardian. So that is something that I'm telling you will magnetize, because our words are wands. So when we tell stories, they're spells. And when we blow our breath into the knot and catch it in there, it holds a power.
Please tell us about your Coven at the Chelsea Hotel here in New York.
Oh, goodness. Well, we have a dear friend who is a photographer, and his name is Tony. And Tony has this beautiful place that was once lived in by the artist Valley Myers. And she had tattoos on her face and a little fox, and she was known as a witch. And she lived in this space. And as you know, the Chelsea Hotel has a very long history of artists, of writers, of musicians, of poets, of the most amazing musicians like in New York City history. And so I really believe that that space is a portal. And Tony has been kind enough to open up his space and kind of have this as the home for our coven. And we have been meeting on the full moon, and we will all get together and we focus on different positive things every single month, depending on what moon it is, or doing different themes. And often we have music involved in it, and we craft things, we create things together. And it's a really positive way to kind of come together in this magical, iconic New York City space that is such a portal, and really create the magic, because the spirits are most definitely there, and there is a supernatural boost that happens to our magic when we create it in that space, for sure.
Tell us about the School of Spectaculus.
Well, the School of Spectaculus, Spectaculus is the tradition of witchcraft that I practice and do, which is a combination of my grandmother Helen's Bohemian Magick. And it is also a combination of my own and also my husband David Varlow's kind of rock and roll, gritty magic. It is a witchcraft of the working class, of the poets, of the musicians, and it is named Spectaculus. We do a lot of crafting and creating and art, because that is part of this beautiful magical world that we do. And the School of Spectaculus is part of the spellcasting tradition that I teach in Bohemian Magick. I also teach online. I have a course right now online where people can get the book for free as a companion to the course, as with signing up and things like that. And it is a tradition of spell casting that I've learned over doing spells since I was 6 years old, that have really helped me create the most powerful spells, that I can raise up my energy, focus on the target that I want, and then just kind of shoot the spell out to manifest the beauty in my life that I want to. So that's what I'm sharing in that. So yeah.
And I have to tell our listeners that Bohemian Magick is also filled with rich and colorful selections of art, illustrations, and photography, in addition to Veronica's wisdom in the book. Is this an extension of your sensual magic?
It is. It's interesting because it's an art spell. And the book is a word spell and an art spell. And the book is done as if it's my very own grimoire, with pale pink pages and photos and art that are taped down into this book. And I chose my supernatural heroes to be in this book. And so that way, they could be a part of the spell. They could be on the pages of this book with me. They could be standing there with me. And that was something that was really important to me. There's also a space in the beginning of the book where the reader is able to tape their hair into the book, put their lip print kiss into it. They can write their names into it, so that it's also your grimoire too, because you are going to build upon this in your own way. And so, yeah, there's lots of photos and rock stars and artists and local artists and artists from the 1800s. And it's a wide selection of art spellcraft.
Not to mention the fact that it's, first of all, for listeners who don't know, what does the word grimoire mean?
It means a book of spells. It's actually originally from the French word which meant just simply grammar. But over a period of time, it kind of started combining with a Latin word where they were making it be more grimoire, which it meant magical words. So it's like magical grammar. So it's the high learning of magical grammar in one space in your book. So that's what it means. So it's a magical space for your spells and your magical book.
And listeners, when you take this book into your hands, you feel the magic. There is just an amazing energy that permeates this book. The words, the images, the art, everything that Veronica shares is just so thrilling. You have to get this book. It's really, really beautiful. Let's just touch on two other things before we go take our next break, because I'd like to get a couple of things about your past in there. You are a sensuality coach. What do you teach your clients?
Well, I teach them how to be more in touch with their senses, period, with all of the senses, with being able to slow things down, with really tapping into their own sensual nature and what makes them happy, what makes them feel alive and electric. Because I think that oftentimes a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past, they don't know what turns them on, or they haven't explored. And this is from anything from physical to mental to, anything, and just like indulging your senses and really enjoying, how do I phrase this? Like enjoying just like being in this body and taking your time and really allowing yourself to connect with this beautiful side of you. I think that it's interesting because a lot of people hear that I'm a sensuality coach. And they think a lot of there's a lot of assumptions when they think that. And I will tell you that when I met on our first date, when I met David, I told him, I said, I just want to let you know that I can't kiss you on the first date. And he was kind of like, wait, what? Because, this is 2018 when this happened. And we are at this beautiful, like kind of underground speakeasy bar, and it's dark and candlelit. And he's, I'm telling him that, we're not even going to kiss. And it was so beautiful because we would hold each other's hand and feel electric. And we were kind of like super close, like dancing. And I would whisper in one ear and then kind of like slowly bring my face across his face, like where the tips of our nose would touch. And then I would whisper in his other ear. And he said to me later, he said, it was so powerful because I knew that we weren't even going to kiss, but our energy being together that closely was like electrical fire. And we ended up not kissing until date 4. And so sometimes when you allow yourself to be in just a hand holding mode, or like dragging your fingertips across, their face, or just, accidentally touching the tip of their nose with yours, or whispering in their ear, it really creates beautiful magic. So it's really taking stock in all of the ways that you can create magic together is sensuality for me.
And we have to take a break so I can spend a few minutes with my wife. Her book is called Bohemian Magick, Witchcraft and Secret Spells to Electrify Your Life. My guest is Veronica Varlow. We'll be back with more after these words on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Veronica Varlow. We're talking about her brand new book, Bohemian Magick, Witchcraft and Secret Spells to Electrify Your Life. So, what are the tools and items that are essential to the beginning spellcaster?
I would say the most essential tool is just you. It's just you believing in your magic. Everything else that is out there, you don't need. You can use them and they can maybe help you feel good like a prop. However, I believe that it's really beautiful knowing that just your breath, the words you speak and create, the poetry incantations that you might want to speak to create a specific spell, holding your arms to the sky, pointing your fingers like wands, dancing, all of these things are you and connecting with the world. So number one, when you're starting, don't be intimidated by feeling like you have to buy all these things and, buy candles and crystals and cauldrons and all of that. Now, I will say that over time it's really fun. I love my cauldron because I love scent magic and I love brewing up a good cauldron. And I love my candles. My grandmother would say that in Bohemian Magic, and her form of magic, when you burn a magical candle on this side on the earth, for a magical intention, as it's burning down, she would say that it burns whole or upwards on the other side. So as the candle is disappearing here, it is appearing on the other side so that your spirits and your ancestors that watch over you are kind of getting a signal. They're getting a signal of what you need, or, what kind of thing that, that you would like to manifest in your world. And that's why my grandmother would always, carve her candles with words of her spells, or a powerful word that she wanted to bring in. So there is something to say about using tools, but at the same time, I think it's very important to know that the most powerful tool is you.
And how do we create the space to do this work?
I think it's called a magical practice for a reason. And I feel like the more that you give to it, the more that you feed it, the better your world becomes. Because it's kind of like every single time that you take the time to focus on you and your magical practice, the stronger that you become. So for instance, like say during lunchtime, you have a choice that you can watch a show for a half hour, or you can work on your magical practice for a half hour. Well, at the end of a year, if all of those times you were just spent watching other people's entertainment for you, you're not really going to learn anything, or, have that extra ability or that extra power. But if you even dedicate even 10, 15 minutes a day to your magical practice, you will see yourself rockets after a short period of time. I really do believe that. I really do believe that.
In Bohemian Magick, you talk about the bones. What are the bones?
Oh, the bones are part of your spell, where you put your essence into a spell. So the bones is your art. It's the thing that you do that you can like communicate into this world. So it's the your art, it's your music, it could be your dancing, it could be your, drumming on your knees, even in a heartbeat fashion. It could be your knitting, it could be your sewing, it could be whatever it is that you communicate art in this world is what I call your bones, because in Bohemian Magic and in this Witchcraft of Spectaculus, it is very focused on art and creativity and how much that is a magical spell on its own. So discovering your bones is discovering what is like the source of you. What is one of the things and the ways that you express yourself, which could be writing a poem, or it can be, singing a song or dancing or, painting a picture, doing a collage, any number of things. So that is very important in your spell casting, because the more that you put of yourself in a spell, the more personal and the more powerful it is.
When we work with energy and spell casting, setting intention is the primary step. What goes into setting the right intention?
That's an excellent question. Setting the right intention is really thinking about, one, why do you want to do this? Why do you want this so badly? Or why do you want to bring this into your life? And then thinking about, imagining what it would be like having this particular thing or manifesting this situation or thing in your world. And when you start to really connect with that, and you want to go deep with that, you want to really think, what is it that you want? Because when you say, like, I want a lot of money, like, one, that's boring. Two, it's like it's too general. What do you want to do? Do you want to be successful in what you love? Why do you want that money? Why do you want to have extra time? Do you want to have some beautiful extra time for yourself? Do you want to be able to travel more? Like, when you go into the deeper meanings, when you keep asking yourself why, then you can find those deeper meanings and really create a raw, powerful intention.
You also share that it is important to personalize the spell. How may this be done?
Oh, there's so many ways that you can do it. One of the ways you can personalize a spell, like I said, is creating your own poetic incantation that you repeat 3 times. I've found that speaking your words out loud are very important in a spell. You can also personalize your spell by using pieces of you, of your DNA. So if you put, for instance, I talk about, I give an example in the book about, say, you want to create a love gift, a spell for your lover, and you knit them a scarf. You might want to knit a piece of your hair that holds your DNA into the threads of the scarf, into the yarn, so that that will be keeping your lover warm. You can do this by hair. You can do this by, by saliva. You could do this by blood. You could do this by teeth, even. As strange as this is, and as well, I don't think it's strange, because I will always be that weird temp from back in the day, but that does weird things. But my wedding ring with David is actually his tooth that he had taken out when he was 12 years old, and he had saved it in a box, and he showed it to me a few months after we met, and I saw it and I said, that is what I don't want, a diamond. What I want is, I want your tooth set into a ring, because I wanted to carry part of the bones of the person I love on my finger. So when we're apart, and especially like when I get nervous, I will put my thumb, like I kind of like clench my fist, and I'll put my thumb into the divot of the tooth on my ring. And I feel like he's here with me all the time. I sleep with my hand next to my face, and he's always with me. Whether we're together or apart, I carry an actual piece of my love with me at all times along on my finger. So that's powerful magic, whether it's creepy or not. That could be, your your listeners can decide that. For me, I feel like that's very beautiful. So I feel like, here we are in this beautiful body. I feel like all of us is beautiful. So that is a way you can make your spells powerful.
What would you like readers to take away from Bohemian Magick?
I would love for them to take away that all of their beautiful, unique, and wild power is already inside of them. It's just uncovering it. And through using these powerful spells that were passed down from my grandma Helen, who is such a beautiful spirit, who was such a wonderful person on this earth and is an incredible spirit, and from all of the magic in my family, there's so much love in these spells. There's so much love and energy in this book. And I know that this book can be a companion to you. And I know that it will help you on your journey to really call your power back to you and stand in your most unique truth and live that beautiful life of your dreams. And that is what my mission is, to get this book out there and help others, really, really electrify their life.
Absolutely. My guest, Veronica Varlow, her book, Bohemian Magick, Witchcraft and Secret Spells to Electrify Your Life. Veronica, one more time, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you.
Sure. They can get my book you can go to my website, which is lovewitch.com. You can also go to my Instagram, which is my handle is at Veronica Varlow, which is VARLOW, Veronica Varlow. And in my bio, I have all sorts of beautiful links there. And you can find one of the links is my local bookstore, Word. If you buy it there, you'll be able to get one with an autographed copy from me, which I will personalize to you happily.
Veronica, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your special magic.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated this, and I really appreciate the heart and soul in which you have these conversations. So thank you for being you, and thank you for doing this work.
Thank you, Veronica. And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Fuhrman. Have a wonderful week.